Hello, and welcome to the Tenfold AI podcast. I'm Heather, joined by Matt Scanlon. And by the way, recently I got married, so my last name it has changed. I used to be Heather Snyder. Now I am Heather Gertis, and that's how you say that. But yeah, this is exciting. I'm in a new house, new background, and yeah, I'm stoked to be here today. This podcast is sponsored by Promode.ai. Promode is the first ever end-to-end AI-powered marketing platform built for B2B companies, construction, manufacturing, professional services. We got you. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Good. I'm laughing when you said your new last name. I have a monitor that's like right here to my left. And it's also where I have my iMessages. So like whenever you and I are texting, it's like right here from where I'm sitting. And I have a running notepad of hey, here's some things I probably would need to remember every day. And I think you'd probably been married for like 2 weeks before I finally text you. And I was like, hey, how the fuck do you say your new last name?
Yeah.
And I copied the like phonetic pronunciation, and it's like right here in my periphery at any given time.
Yeah. Gerdes.
Yep.
Gerdes. Yeah, it's new for me. No one's mispronounced it yet, but I'm sure my husband says it happens a lot, and he's had that last name a long time, so I will trust him. That's okay. I love him and happy to have the name, even if people mispronounce it from
Yeah.
time to time.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations officially, publicly.
Yeah, thanks. It's a nightmare changing your name in all the places. The older you are and the more places have your name happening, the harder it is to make that change. But c'est la vie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. We started a conversation yesterday, and I'm excited to bring it to the podcast. On this podcast, we talk a lot about avoiding shiny object syndrome, which is that phenomenon that happens when new stuff comes out and it can capture our attention and then eventually kind of waste our time, waste our money, waste our energy. And that's something we like to help business owners guard against in the AI space. Because there's, so many tools and, video generation and image generation, and this will build your sales deck and this will build your website. And, business owners can go down that rabbit hole and at the end of it have nothing to show for it. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing we like to guard against or kind of talk about. But something else that you and I talk a lot about is the future of AI. How AI will impact society at every level. And to be fair, nobody knows the answer to that 100%. If we did, we would be investing into companies and making a lot of money. Yeah, but a thought that occurred to me the other day, or just something I was kind of noodling on, that I would love your insight into this topic. So when we built Promode, one of the key differentiators is the volume of output that Promode delivers for clients. So, in our value prop, we say the average mid-market marketing agency is giving you 11 pieces of content a month on average. So 2 blogs, 2 social posts a week, 1 email newsletter a month. That's 11 pieces of content. You'll pay $6,500 a month for that on average with a marketing agency. Promode is giving you 125 pieces of content. So by sheer volume, we are overshadowing your competition with valuable, good content. So that 10x turn up of the volume is a key differentiator in our value prop. But that had me thinking, you know, what happens in 3 years, 4 years when AI marketing adoption becomes ubiquitous? And let's say if today 50% of B2B companies use an agency, in 3 years, what if 50% of companies are using an AI platform and that volume of increase in their output becomes the new standard, right? If the average becomes something more like 80 pieces of content a month as an output because it's now affordable for companies to achieve that because of AI, right? We're saving on all of that overhead and producing things much faster. What happens to the internet experience, if you will, for all of us? And what I mean by that more pointedly is, social media algorithms and our experience online, our email inbox. What is the result of everyone producing so much more content in the marketplace? Like what happens? Is nothing effective anymore? How will the landscape shift and that competitive advantage be gained in that space? Am I asking this question well?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
So you kind of brought this up yesterday. I think about this. You know what? Maggie gets so upset at me because I will go on a 20-minute rant about this at least once a week. So, okay, I want to kind of unpack this like bit by bit, so your overall question is like, what happens when AI becomes another form of compute, right? So in this instance, let's for the sake of the first part of the discussion, uh, let's consider large language models and AI a replacement for our keyboard. Okay, so we're just saying because somebody does not need to use a keyboard to get these ideas out anymore, it would lead you to believe that more ideas are put out there as a result of the latency issue with me needing to type something in. Okay. Because I don't want to go like too far into like the realm of AGI and agents. We'll get there eventually, but just for the sake of this discussion, let's assume that becomes the case. More people begin to outsource their typing to large language models. So it's just compute. I don't want to put any like woo woo artificial general intelligence sentience to the question for now, but just let's say we have reduced the lag time between my ideas and somebody else because we've eliminated the keyboard out of the equation, which is a major bottleneck in time.
Hmm.
So let's just call AI generated content. A robot is using your keyboard for you. Okay. Um, so let's also kind of frame the discussion around the history of social media. So social media first came out and it was free for all users. It started off as like a peer-to-peer non-business sharing platform. Like, Heather, you would check in at Sonic, like, you know, getting my like whatever somebody gets at Sonic or whatever the case may be, like or what's everybody up to tonight? Meet
Yeah.
up in the quad.
Right. Because it was a college campus uh, communication platform.
Exactly. Um, so as that grew in popularity, these companies continued to get more funding from different venture capital and private equity groups because they were losing money. They had to, set up all of these servers. They had to hire employees. They had to write code, but there was no actual monetization that's occurring on the platform. Enter like, probably 20 2000 2008, like the Obama campaign really let the cat out of the bag as
Mm.
far as like politics and business can really get a phenomenal bang for their buck on these platforms. So then advertising became a thing that occurred. Oh, this is how we're going to monetize these platforms. We're going to sell ads. We can have sponsored posts. And we have all of this data on these people, so we can just serve them up really great ads. And it is compared to the alternative at the time, like mind you, at the time, compared to direct mail, compared to like door to door situations. I mean, it was phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, I think I ran my first Facebook ads for a business I owned in like 2013 or 14. Heather was crazy. I would have put like $20 a week to the thing. I mean, like legitimately, I think the highest budget I had back then was $250 a month, and it was my lead cost was in the like single digits lead costs. Um, now for a similar business, you're in the three, four, $500 range, right? So it's a natural consequence that if this is the monetization strategy, and once it goes from early adopters to legacy Fortune 500 companies are now have an ad spend on these platforms, the cost gets driven up.
Hmm.
So and now that these platforms are publicly traded, there's further incentive to say, if you have a commercial interest on this platform, our singular focus is for you to pay to be on the platform.
Hmm.
So that leads to the natural consequence that leads to is if your organic reach will be throttled, you have two options. You pay to play or you increase volume, and it becomes a numbers game. Um, so that has, and then AI is now the large language models that are outsourcing we're outsourcing keyboard work to large language models. We have just entered into the beginning phase where you can start to play that game back at these platforms. So they're saying
Hmm.
you got to pay to play. And we know that you're not going, the tipping point for you in cost is the cost to not pay to play is greater than the cost to pay.
Hmm.
Are you tracking me? So like, if I just boosted every post or like sponsored every post, whatever the case may be that my company puts out, for a long time, it was cheaper just to boost that post than to pay for the agency engagement or to pay for the internal team to hack the throttling of the release. So
Hmm.
we just hit this new inflection point where that formula is no longer working for these platforms.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm tracking with your logic there. So you're saying because the cost has been driven down substantially for organic content production through AI, it's now broken past that inflection point, that convergence of paid media and paying for time, right? So, I mean, because all you're doing when you buy an ad, when you pay an agency to create organic content, you're paying for attention. You're
Exactly.
you're paying to be noticed by your audience, and whether that's in a paid ad or an organic content piece, that goal is the same. Historically, you have a higher chance of being noticed if you're using an ad because you can target and hard push that message, kind of bypassing the algorithms to your target audience. But now, because of AI, you can produce so much more content, better canvas your audience, and be seen. So, but what happens? What happens when everyone is on that train?
Mm-hmm.
And my thought, just from being in marketing and seeing how many companies don't do any marketing now, like 20 years after digital marketing, you know, tactics really started emerging in the marketplace. I still meet business owners all the time who do little to nothing. Like they have a website, they don't do any SEO, they do barely any social media, especially in the B2B space. So I don't think the day will ever come that, or well, it'll be 50 years from now, right? I don't think the day is in the horizon that all businesses are using AI to just blast marketing content,
Yeah, we are
because all
like
businesses aren't even doing marketing today.
I I have learned enough through through my own experience. To me, I feel like this is going to happen in August. I think the thing that you're talking, like in my mind, this thing is happening in August. And I have thought that about so many things in the past. Um, and every time it's like 5 to 7 years away. So
Right.
I think we're 5 to 7 years away because so just to, I want to like, I don't want to like overframe the discussion, but, so like, we kind of started off like these are the economic incentives that brought us to today, to where a company, because for a long time the value prop between the social media and the businesses wanting to get content out to their audience was, okay, we are going to throttle your reach all the way down to 5% of your audience. If you
Mm-hmm.
would like 80% of your audience to see this, throw us $1,000 a month. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that value proposition worked because the 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 social media platforms or pay per click, whatever the case may be, they knew that you couldn't 20x that 5% reach. You couldn't 20x that for under $1,000. That was still a steal of a deal.
And it was
You
instant.
and
It's
it was like a baked
immediate.
in subscription. So if you want to be a business that gets seen on this platform, throw us $1,000 a month. And you as the business, you're like, sweet, that's cheaper than like, those are the cheapest eyeballs I've ever paid for.
Right.
And now you're getting into a situation where that $1,000 a month now is 4, 5, 6. And now you've got enterprise companies on these platforms outbidding any mid-market company, any small business. So you've got mid-market and small business. They are going to be the early adopters of everything. And so they will be the ones to see like, hey, this value proposition, this like social contract that we had going on with these social media companies is no longer applicable now that the late adopters, the enterprise level companies, they are now taking their marketing budget, which is 6 figures a month. And that is now, 40, 50% allocated to social media platforms. So the, the auction of attention has pushed so many people either out of the game or directly into the arms of AI, just cuddling them in its bosoms. And that's the stage that we're in now.
Yeah. Well,
um,
it's you say mid-market and small business will be early adopters, and I'm curious to know what you mean by that. I can see how that could be the case in certain aspects, because enterprise level have been using machine learning technology for ad management, for ad testing, which then translates into their organic campaigns, data science, like really fascinating things that Coca-Cola and Nike and, the data projects they have done for their marketing, big data analysis and
mhm,
really knowing their audience well. Those are all functions of AI on a scientific level. And they've been doing that for a long time, but their motivation, I think, wasn't primarily to save cost, because that just doesn't seem to be how enterprise level moves. Primarily, their motivation was to capture market share. and to dominate. So it's very much a gas pedal versus a brake motivation, whereas the mid market, I think, will be early adopters of AI marketing technology in the way that Promo delivers it, for instance,
Exactly.
because of the cost savings.
Yeah, the
And then,
economic conditions, it's not necessarily the, yes, of course, if you have access to like massive data science operations as an enterprise company, you're going to use that. And enterprise companies have been using the cutting edge data analytics since the beginning of time, right? So
right,
it just so happens that machine learning is a part of cutting edge analytics today. I was more of a meaning that economic drivers,
right,
uh, economic drivers and economic conditions affect enterprise last. And so, and
yeah,
they affect, and it really just works up the chain. I mean, it's like economic drivers affect small business first. They fail or pivot first. And that really does set the tone because the economic drivers are so real to one person. I mean, there's like one human that is like, okay, I might lose my fucking house. Like
yeah,
they're going to stop doing that or they will adapt tomorrow. You know what I
right.
mean? Like the the dispersion of responsibility and consequences becomes immense the larger the corporation is. So the
Yeah,
pivots always occur in a smaller business,
that makes sense
and so
because
you're gonna,
that,
yeah,
yeah, that evolve or die philosophy is inches away when you're in the mid market.
total. I
It's
mean,
like,
okay,
I'm going to evolve tomorrow, or we're going to lose our ass because you're not too big to fail. You're just big enough to fall on your face if you
exactly.
don't do it right.
Well, I mean, okay,
Mhm.
so let's like I was talking about, we were talking about my prediction of when this thing will happen. Listen, in fucking March 2020, I was saying, why is everybody not being laid off right now? What is going on? This, like, we are going to, and what has 5 years later, enterprise is feeling the effects of sending everybody home. Like it is, that reckoning is happening 5 years later. I mean, that is like a,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And then you've got every brick and mortar business in the country 5 years ago is making major structural changes, like
That's,
completely, like,
yeah, it's so interesting that you say that. I never thought of it that way, but in March of 2020, I was selling digital marketing to mid market, and it is amazing. Like, we survived as an agency. We survived because of all those pivots. Like, I had mid market business owners completely restructuring their company. Like, I had I had one prospect who was abandoning their former business model because they had a big contract canceled with Walmart, and they were selling stuff to Walmart. They completely restructured their business, whole business model, leveraging their pre-existing supply chain in China, but selling a different thing to a different market in a different cycle, like B2C, from coming from B2B, because they could no longer depend on that Walmart contract. And it was like within a week, they had completely pivoted. Okay, we're doing this now, build a new website, build a brand, da 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 da, all because they were leveraging that supply chain. But that's a good example of how that economic pressure forces mid market to change first. And I saw that happen a dozen times easily within like 3 weeks in
mhm.
April of 2020.
Yeah, I mean that, like that story right there. I mean, that's my entire entry point into technology and AI specifically was as a result of that pivot occurring. Like, I mean, so in 2018, I had like I had cash to burn, and so I invested in a company, a technology company that, and I was just interested in AI as like a pastime. I was like, yeah, this is just like how I like to spend my free time. This is fun learning about this stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I was approached with an opportunity to invest in a company. 2 years after that, that company at that time was primarily serving brick and mortar businesses um, with their product. And overnight, all of those brick and mortar businesses were ordered to shut down. And it just so happened that this technology product that I invested in had the ability, so was able to overnight turn all of those brick and mortar businesses into online businesses. And then that
Yeah.
company just exploded as a result of it. But like, to see thousands of brick and mortar small business owners pivot to like running an online business within a week I was like, holy shit, this is insane. Like,
Yeah.
everything changed. You know what I
I
mean?
think we I think we did like 200 restaurants. Like
Mm-hmm,
we did like a very scalable solution that we could like quickly implement online ordering for
mm-hmm.
restaurants. We did like 200 within a month
Yep.
of 2020 because they and sometimes it's that those economic conditions, pressure those smaller companies to make that change that the bigger companies had already made years ago.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's because of the latency of the mid market. It's like they don't do it until they absolutely have to, and then they have to overnight.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so we kind of framed, like, I think let's just talk about this idea today, because I think there's a lot of framing around it that will be fun. So
Mm-hmm.
we framed these are the economic conditions that have led us to this point to where now volume becomes a very achievable thing for a wide range of companies. Like, it's like right now it is mid market, like using AI that works, right? So it's mid market. So that's who and then eventually the cost of that is reduced. That's now accessible to small businesses. So then they can make this volume play. Um, Whether or not enterprise ever goes there, I think that my prediction of what will happen in 10 years will happen before enterprise ever adopts the volume communication strategy available with AI. I want to talk also about cultural conditions, because I think that um, this is going to be a major reckoning, I believe, culturally. Now, I think you and I are like, are we the oldest millennials? Do I have the generation thing correct? Like,
So we're you were 85, right?
yeah.
Born in 85? Yeah, I was at the end of 84. So we're in a micro generation called the Zennials.
Okay. Hmm. And what does that mean? Zennials.
It means we're the oldest generation to have had part of our formative years in technology. So we had cell phones when we were teenagers, but we're old enough to remember the analog life. And I don't think it's any coincidence that so many tech founders and I'm not trying to pat my own back here, but because you can't help when you're born, but so many thought leaders in the tech space come from our very small window you know of time that we were born.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, okay. So yeah, as like, so all right, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, but I think you'll be following me. Maggie and I were just having this conversation. I just did one of these fucking rants last night. Um, so okay, do you remember a time? I'm sure you experienced this when you were a kid. Like, put in a bench seat, no seat belt, maybe standing up, driving down the highway, facing backwards in the back of a station wagon, 7 kids in the back of an SUV, thrown out of the house at 7 in the morning on the summer. Don't come back till it's dark. It's 9. You've not checked in once.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, like, this is
getting
the
lost in the woods with no phone, like
Mhm.
actually lost in the woods.
Like
Mhm.
this is a lot of, I mean, this is like most people our age, this is kind of what their childhood looked like.
Sure.
Um, now, so like not to get very morbid about this, but I am like currently looking at a chart of motor vehicle deaths, children ages 0 to 14, um, in from 1970 to 2016. Okay. Uh, 10 motor vehicle deaths per 100,000 kids, 0 to 14. Looking at this chart from 1970, it goes up to 2016. That line drops. I mean, it
Mhm.
is like, it's like too small to even read, but I think it's might be now like 10% of what it was in. So 90% reduction in these things.
Mm.
And we all look at that and say, like, we kind of joke about, we're jokingly talking about like, this is crazy. This is irresponsible. Who would raise their kids like this today? And there is a lot of truth in that, right? And the range of things that people our age experienced in this like latchkey childhood was like, for you and I, it's like nostalgic, but we would never do it. You know what I mean? And then there are like other kids who the result of that experience, and that being the cultural norm, the result of that experience was probably significantly more traumatic. Like they probably experienced some real fucked up shit, you know, as a result of that. So there's this range of it, but broadly as a society, we have agreed that probably wasn't the way to do it. There's probably, we should pare that down a little bit. And I think that like completely like preventable motor vehicle accidents, like the rate of motor vehicle accidents is no, like it's no lower. There's still the same number of accidents, but 90% less kids die in them. And that is
Well,
simply because as a society, we have agreed that this is an issue, you know?
it's interesting how that statistic lines up with the birth rate um, decline.
Mm-hmm.
So in the last 40 years, the birth rate has decreased substantially. So it's, we have
Value
to,
of a kid's life is a little bit more.
well, it is,
We got a few extra. I mean,
Yeah, my
that's
grandfather had 15 siblings in the Dust Bowl, the early 1900s in the Midwest, and one of his brothers got ran over by a wagon when he was like 3, which was a fairly common occurrence. And I'm not saying that that's not terrible. It is. And I'm sure, my great grandmother was heartbroken because of it. But, there is an element of you have more kids, and I can see how less safety measures might be taken. It's not a conscious thing, It's not like, oh, we're going to loosen up because we have enough kids to spare a couple. But it's like that natural evolution of, if people are having fewer children, we better increase safety measures to keep children alive until they can reproduce. And, you know, like, I don't think that's an accident.
right. So you said something in there that I is like the thing. It was like those were common occurrences. We only look at these things in this way in hindsight, right? Every cultural change that has happened is only viewed in hindsight. In the moment, it is normal. Okay.
Right.
And so, can we all agree that there is some shit happening today that we will look back in hindsight and say, what the fuck were we thinking?
Yes.
And to me, the most obvious thing that we are going to look back on in hindsight and say, what the fuck were we thinking, was allowing machine learning to run rampant on social media and fully participating in it without any thought process whatsoever. Like we will
Mm-hmm.
look back on a time, like it will take, like it will take so it won't be for 20 or 30 years, but eventually there will be, it will probably be Gen Z will get older. They will, like Gen Z will turn 35 and like go to therapy and look back on this time. And then people will start to research it. They'll start to look into it and they'll say, machine learning was hijacking our hormones, our dopamine, our cortisol was being hijacked by these algorithms. And
Mm-hmm.
and kids were on this stuff 14, 15 years old. Adults were on it. Like this is a thing that we will look at in the same way that we're talking about a kid standing up in a bench seat going 55 miles an hour down the highway, dad's drinking a Budweiser. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is a lot, like that was a thing that happened all the time when I was growing up. Like that was the norm. And it would be absurd. You know what I mean? If you were doing that today, you would have the cops called on you every mile of that trip.
Yeah.
That was common occurrence back. And so, but nobody was aware. It was like, yeah, that's just what we do. I do believe that this is going to be a reckoning that happens eventually.
Mm-hmm.
There are, I like, it's all the way from like the innocuous time wasting on it. But I mean, like, there are a lot of issues going on. Like this is causing a lot of societal issues, from changing elections, overthrowing governments in other countries, like all the way down to the very like to teen suicide, to
Mm-hmm.
these things are all directly tied to these machine learning algorithms that are finely tuned to hijack your dopamine and cortisol.
Right. And hijacked to ensure that you are safely tucked away in your echo chamber,
Mm-hmm.
that
Exactly.
you're only exposed to ideas that you like,
Mm-hmm.
that you're likely to respond to positively, or polarizing to incite social outrage.
Exactly. And it's not, and so I don't want to, I don't believe, so what you just described is like, to me, I think that that's an emergent phenomenon. Would not, like, I do think that these machine learning algorithms on these platforms are very simple. I don't think there's any nefarious intent behind them. Um, they are simply trying to optimize for put more content on here, stay on here longer. That's all
Right.
they're optimizing for. It just so happens that human nature is such that the net result is this emergent phenomenon that you're discussing, is outrage, echo chambers. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people like families have been broken up over this. Like it's like there's a lot of bad shit going on. And like I don't want to hit on any of the like hot button political issues or anything like that, because I think that just becomes a distraction from the actual, like
Mm-hmm.
what is actually going on. And that is dopamine is being hijacked by very simple machine learning algorithms that nobody understands. But
Yeah.
there's like a generation of kids coming up. Well, and I would even include myself in this, where like at a certain point, people become of a certain age and certain status to where they understand how these things work and start talking about it and start talking about what are the ramifications of this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, it was like, and there's a natural phenomenon that will occur as like, I mean, think about Facebook today. Like, it's like Facebook is a place where like 60-year old single people go to hook up. It's where I go to buy drum parts. It is like, it's
Share
not,
recipes.
yeah. You know what I mean? It just, it's a dorky old person place to be, right? myself included. I'm no shade, but that's what Facebook is. Do you really think TikTok's not going to be that? Do you not think
Mm-hmm.
that TikTok's going to be fucking Facebook Marketplace in 10 years? And
Yeah.
so then, like, so what will happen is all of these kids who have like formed their identity, like like created an entire economy on this platform. Like, this is a company that's going to IPO. It's going to do what Facebook did, and it's going to become a place where, in the year 2040, it's going to be a place where old people go to buy quilts. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like, that's like,
Yeah.
it will become that. Uh,
Sure. Well, it's like none of these changes that we're seeing, AI adoption, the increase of content that a company can launch because of AI, the cost kind of coming way down. None of these changes are happening in a vacuum. Like to your point, they are all happening within a extremely complex set of systems called our society,
mhm.
right? And our culture. And when I look at some of the other variables, like the change of buying behavior generationally, how different generations are making buying decisions, it gives me hope that the landscape is shifting and that society um, will shift naturally with those changes. So one example, my dad's generation, the baby boomers, were highly, highly susceptible to advertising on an emotional level. Um, and they were the generation of the Super Bowl commercial.
Dude, that's the horses, the Budweiser
The
horses. Oh my
horses,
God. Yeah.
the frogs, Got Milk campaign, all of these iconic ad campaigns. Like my father in law just the other night referenced the commercial of the Native American crying when
And then
someone
littered.
littered. And the way he, you know, kind of reminisced about that commercial, it was clear that hit him, that got him. And he's remembering it and recalling it 50 years later or however long. And his grandchildren who were in the room um, had never seen that commercial. In fact, our 17-year-old says, I've never seen a commercial. She has seen commercials, but in her mind, she's never seen a commercial because she doesn't watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
She watches YouTube. And she's seen plenty of ads on YouTube, but to her, those are not commercials and they're skippable. You skip them, you
Yeah.
pay no attention to it, and you move on. Yes, that
Pull that
commercial.
up. It gets me every time too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's many campaigns. There's the Alka-Seltzer campaign, the Pop Pop Fizz Fizz, oh what a relief it is. Those campaigns are what advertising was built on. Like that was the empire of advertising on the backs of those types of campaigns. And it was the heyday of ads. And that generation was highly susceptible to ads. The American housewife being advertised to for the very first time because advertisers realized, holy shit, it's the woman of the house who is buying the laundry soap and the toothpaste and these things. And so ads started being focused more to females, whereas before that, all advertising was very male. It was facts and figures, no emotion. It was something in the Sears Roebuck catalog that you would get or the Montgomery Ward catalog. And the ad wasn't emotional really at all. But then advertisers realized women are spending money. Let's speak in stories to these women. Let's have them see themselves ideally in this idealistic way in these ads, and then off to the races with the emotional ad campaigns of our parents' generation, right? And it was highly, highly successful. Households were brand loyal to Tide, to Coca Cola, to whatever, um, common things in your house became tribalistic symbols of your brand loyalty for the very first time. But what's happening in the younger generation, we're the sandwich, right? So we're between them and the kids of today. What I'm seeing in the younger generation and even people in the business world under about 35 is a very different way of making buying decisions.
Mm-hmm.
They are not as susceptible to emotional ad campaigns. They don't give a shit how cool the website is, how cool the ad concept was. They want to go into Reddit and have a conversation about the technical specs of that product that they are thinking of buying or of that service that they're thinking of subscribing to. They want a lot of social proof. They want a lot of data and proof that the thing they're going to buy will solve the problem that they have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I'm excited about, and you can tell I'm excited about it, in the B2B space, I think in 5 years, as the baby boomer generation retires, and 5 to 10 years from now, when they are completely out of the office, and we have millennials making buying decisions in the B2B space, decision makers in the corner office are millennials. We're going to see businesses making buying decisions not based on relationships they have with people at the country club, not based on the good old boy cigar club handshake. We're going to see people making buying decisions because of deep research that their AI agents are doing to find good solutions for their companies.
100%. Like you hit the nail on the head. So that's so to bring this full circle to the discussion about volume of organic content on social media. I think you're highlighting what happens. There becomes a reckoning. There becomes this two-part reckoning where the economic conditions have driven the majority of what would previously be customers, meaning businesses that are paying to have distribution on social media. Those economic conditions are driving towards this like high volume like AI content, right? Um, and then there will be this cultural reckoning that will happen as well, where we actually start to see these machine learning algorithms for what they are, and we reckon with the societal damage that they've caused. I think both of those things will reach an inflection point where social media in the way that we know it today will have to fundamentally change. It will absolutely fundamentally change. And, if I could give like my pie in the sky, like honestly, like a major part of my why with Pro Mode, I mean, this is kind of like very much like under the hood in my like deepest recesses of my desires. One of my primary whys with Pro Mode is that we usher in the end of social media and the way that it operates today. I
Mhm.
really do hope that we are a part of the thing that makes this like societal capture come to an end.
Mm.
And so you might be thinking like, well, wouldn't that like put Pro Mode out of business if there's no social platform to put this content on? No, uh, because one thing that we have learned is there is a way to do mass communication. So we'll never unring the bell of what social media has given us, and that is the ability to communicate with an audience that is interested in what we're doing, whether that's as an individual, as a business, whatever. I do not think that the idea of uh, like full access to all of my data, all of my thoughts, all of my dopamine, all of my stress. Like, I don't think that people will abide by that anymore. So my hope is that a new business model in social sharing emerges where there is no ad revenue. It's not ad revenue driven. It's not data driven, but rather it is such a quality product that a business would willingly pay $100 a month, $500 a month to be on this thing. And then the revenue model for that social platform is simply, here is our algorithm. It is open source. You can see exactly how we are, like, how we're manipulating your attention. It's plain English. Everybody could understand it. Everybody is entering into it with an agreement, full transparency. And I think any business would gladly pay a few $100 if it was just like, yep, everything you put out, everybody sees. And you can share with everybody. You can share with segments. You can, like, there is flexibility in how this thing works. We
Mm-hmm.
don't control your content distribution. You put stuff out there. And so I don't think that, so like today, we're using AI for volume. Um, to your point about how new generations make buying decisions, I think, like, again, this is like kind of going back to my more broad pie in the sky hope, my why for pro mode is that, like, right now we are addressing volume, which is a serious issue to be addressed. But really what I want businesses to become comfortable with with using AI to communicate things in all kinds of ways, whether that is super deep research, whether that is a chatbot that answers all of the technical specs that you would ever want to know about anything. Like, it is, you are growing accustomed to feeding your company data into this AI model, and then the distribution channel for that can change. That's all good. And I hope it does change. I hope
Mm-hmm.
that we move to a more transparent, open source, like, subscription model, social sharing, and like networking. You know what I mean? Like where it's not necessarily like a tier you pay for a pro tier, but it is just like, no, to be on this thing as an individual, we have to run a credit card for $1 one time, prove that you're a human, has a
Mm-hmm.
security number. And if you're a business and you want to be on this thing, it's, $50 a month for a small business. It is $500 a month for mid-market. And like, you choose your audience segmentation. Everybody is opting into everything. They know what data is used. They know, like, and then you're using AI to really generate hyper specific, hyper useful information, uh, and provide real value to people. And so I think then it goes from, like, today we're addressing volume, which is today's biggest problem on these platforms. My hope is that tomorrow's biggest problem on these platforms will be quality of data.
Right.
Hope that in 5 years, we're recording a podcast and we're no longer talking about 125 pieces of content a month. I hope we're talking about single pieces of bespoke content, a one-to-one, like,
Mm-hmm.
real time, generating the most useful, helpful, non-salesy content. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm to give you an example of this, like, we work with I'm so excited right now. Like, we have some HVAC companies that we work with, and been working on some of their vector databases and stuff. I hope that one day, like, there is a user on this made up social media platform that is like, how do you change the air filter on a Lennox CX834 thing? And that search is saved, it's saved in their cookies. And then this HVAC company delivers a step-by-step guide. Here's how to change your own air filter. Here's the filter that we recommend. And oh, by the way, when you're ready for service this spring, we got you. we actually know because you were looking for the answer to this thing, we are the ones that provided the answer you needed today. And like, was this helpful? We'll come clean your ducts in the spring. Like that
Mm-hmm.
is my hope, is that it morphs from volume to high quality. Everybody is opted into the experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I have a bone to pick with you actually, Matt, and you're to blame for this because
You know,
since starting pro mode and like drinking from the fire hydrant of information that you've exposed me to and that I've dug deep on, just to learn more about AI and all the processes we're using at pro mode so I can understand it enough to explain it to our market. It's like now in my day-to-day life, all the clunkiness of life, everything from family calendar management and the disparity between all of our calendars, and we're never on the same page, and it's like, oh my god, the communication breaks that are occurring around me, from managing the household to networking, all of those inefficiencies are so highlighted to me. And I'm sure you're like, welcome to my world, lady. I mean, so just an example for a business application. In the last week, I've met with two or three business, reps from various companies or business owners. I've had a few networking, coffee chats, just like, hey, what are you doing? What am I doing? What are you trying to do? How can I help you? Kind of things. And in those conversations, I'm realizing, wow, we're not doing this very well at all. Just networking. And, I had a really good coffee with a girl the other day, a young woman who reps for a catastrophe restoration company. And they're amazing here in Kansas City. NCRI is their name. I'll shout them out. Um, and we were just talking about our networking experiences and how we're trying to, meet the right people. And she's really trying to do it well, trying to kind of organize a core group of other women in this case who are on the same journey to grow their companies and, help other companies. And she was talking about this networking group that they're a part of that's very expensive to buy into. It's tens of thousands of dollars a year. And, how do you maximize that investment of that networking group? And I said, and I've been a part of that group. They're great people. So the problem is none of us are sharing information at the right time or fast enough. Because you could have a group of business owners, 200 people in a room, and there is 100% chance that someone in that room is currently talking to someone you need to talk to. Like just the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation effect alone says somebody in that room is talking to somebody I need to talk to. But how are we going to efficiently find out who that is, make that connection? There's 200 people. You're in the room for 3 hours. You're never going to talk to all of the people or get to that point of, you're not going to reveal that coincidence between the two of you to make something meaningful happen. And if you do, you luck out. And so they're currently hanging their hat on the success of those lucky moments that happen in that group. And I was talking to her and I was like, what if we just, and this is something we could do today. This wouldn't even require a change of social media algorithm practices, right? I said, what if we formed like a coalition of like-minded hustlers in the B2B space who don't compete against each other in business, right? Maybe you have 10 of us. 10 of us, and we all do an AI data feed of our calendars, who we're meeting with within like a 2-3 week window. And then that data feed is fed to each of us in the form of a morning report.
Mhm.
And then we
Yes.
all can reference that morning report. Who are you talking to? Who are they talking to? Oh, shoot, I've been trying to get a meeting with him for frickin' 6 months, and you're talking to him tomorrow. Can you just like schmooze me in?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I can mention you. You know what's going on in their business as it relates to what you sell. I know what's going on in their business as it relates to what I sell. And none of this is unique. None of this is different from the way B2B sales works today. It's just slick as hell.
Mm-hmm.
It's the right information at the right time, fast.
Mm-hmm.
Which the reason I thought of that is because we built ProMode, which works like that in its own way in marketing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm simply applying that logic, that kind of logic train to the world of sales. And I'm like, well, shit, we could, we could share information way better than we're doing it in this analog way, depending on our human minds, which forget about things and have dishes to do. And like, we're distracted, even though we want to help our fellow reps for other companies. Like, yeah, man, I want to do you a solid. I like, that's my desire to help you. But there's no way I'm going to think of all the people who I know who you need to talk to and make that connection.
100%, Heather. Like, and like what you just highlighted is under the right conditions. Like, okay, on LinkedIn today, there is of all of the available parts of Heather that you would be willing to hand over. Let's say, you know, 10% of Heather you're willing to hand over. You just described some like boundary conditions where you would be willing to, if there were trust and transparency, you would release a significant chunk of Heather somewhere.
Yeah.
You follow me?
I'd run an NDA.
Right. But like, yeah, exactly. Like I've done fucking fundraising on LinkedIn, and it is like, these are like people like trying to get intros to people. It is just such a pain in the ass. And then but then there's another like text messaging. You know what I mean? Like if I'm on texting terms with somebody, hey, could you do me a solid? I'm like raising money right now. When you raise that last round, like, if you could, I checked it out. I looked at their investors thesis. Would you make an intro for me? 100% of the time there's an intro. And similarly, I would reciprocate that same
Sure.
thing. So that like there are these boundary conditions under which we would be willing to offer up some of our most valuable data and
Sure.
insights, to like if we as the user had control over these things, and we could like isolate groups of people, form these communities. Like it is, we would be willing to do a lot more than we're doing today. And
Totally.
and then bringing it back full circle to AI, like I do feel that AI is going to be the the card that brings this current infrastructure will completely crash as a result. This new infrastructure that you just described also requires AI. Like that is going to be the key element between those two, but it will be like that will be the phase of AI where it ushers in an era of like individual autonomy, like like opt-in, like democratization, like true democratization of this technology in the
Mm-hmm.
context that you just described. Every business leader would do that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was at a networking event last night and it just felt, by and large, like a waste of time. Like I had some good conversations, and it's where I should have been, and I went. But, how many people really walked away with something, that they really couldn't have done without? Not maybe a couple of people, but usually not. Usually it's just something else you have to go to and drive to and get dressed for and like all the things. And it's like this could all be done so much better.
Hmm. Hmm.
In sales, especially B2B sales, there's been a saying for a long time: the salesperson with the most information wins. Meaning, if you know more about your prospect than your competitor does, and you're both vying for the same deal, you're probably going to win
Hmm. Hmm.
because you know things like their buying motivations, their problem. You have a better understanding of what matters to them. You know your product better. All of the ways you could have information in a deal. The more of it you have, the higher your chances are of winning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like in the world of marketing, getting into sales enablement, prospecting, it's the same thing. Like the more information you have about who's buying your product, who has the problem you can solve, where are they today? Where is your network today in relation to your prospects? All of that is just points being gained in the sales game,
Hmm.
you know?
Exactly. I like piggyback on your example. I'm like, I've got Slack open over here and it's just pinging off. So I'm in this AI mastermind, and the majority of the members, and so this is, sometimes I think we kind of little poo poo on agencies a little bit. I do want to say that there are some like very forward thinking agencies, and so like the majority of the people in this mastermind are marketers, and they see it like they know what's going on, they know what's up, and they are like proactively making major shifts in the direction of AI. So like I do have, we got to like give kudos. But anyway, so it's like one thing that I'm seeing used a lot is OpenAI's deep research, right? And so like, so they have all of this research, and so like every month we share something that we've learned or a tool that we use. Like in this example, like I am super willing to say, here's how we actually, this is a strategy I found where structuring how to structure these massive data sets, like data sets that are maybe too small for retrieval augmented generation, too small for machine learning, but like too big for chat GPT. Let me
Mm-hmm.
show like, and it's like I'm like that's not really giving away the like technology under the hood at pro mode, and but like that willingness to like assist and help from what I don't wouldn't even call competitors, but it's there. People want to do that. People want to do business that way, and I really do think AI is going to be the way that people get to do very human business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's very cool. And I know this conversation has been, a bit nebulous. Like we're kind of talking about some big things, but I think it's important every now and then, at least for us to zoom way out and look at the big picture of, the societal impact and and then zoom back into, okay, what does this mean to us today as marketers, as salespeople, as business owners? Um, and I think, having a shared mental model on where are we going and what's the big picture here is so important. And back to the shiny object syndrome that we talk about on this podcast, having that philosophy about AI, about the future, I think really helps guard against that shiny object syndrome. Because if you're a business owner and you don't really have a bucket in your mind yet for AI, like it's just still a question mark, like, oh, I don't know. I've read about it a little. I see it on the news sometimes. It's kind of scary. I don't know where to start in using AI profitably. I think you're at risk of that shiny object syndrome or just missing the boat completely, neither of which are good. So just kind of grabbing hold of it, um, having a philosophy about it, whatever that may be, can help in sort of guiding your steps in AI decisions.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And to me, that's why I think like, you know, the, this is like, this is where you and I have this like shared vision, but coming at it from very opposite directions. Like to me, like the idea of AI being like your communications department. So like, using AI for marketing, SEO in the way that Promote is, it is like the reason that that particular thing was so attractive to me is like this is a low risk, low stakes, guaranteed cost savings way to begin to grow accustomed to. We're going to feed data into an AI model, and we're going to have something come out of it. Just like point blank, it is, like marketing content is the clearest, safest, like nothing
Right.
is proprietary, nothing is, it is like, I mean, it's clearly the first step that any business should take if they want to adopt AI. And the cool thing about marketing is that it can be a scaffold for other things. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, marketing becomes scaffolding for using AI in your HR operations. It becomes scaffolding for your sales teams. It becomes scaffolding for networking in the way that you just described. So yeah, buy Promote, everybody.
Yeah. Well, one quick thought on that. It's like, why is marketing the first place to start? It's easy. It's a cost benefit analysis. What is the cost of your current marketing and what are you getting from it today? Many mid-market B2B company owners tell me all the time they don't see anything from their current marketing investment.
Mhm.
It's merely a box that they check. Every now and then they might get a lead, but they do not depend on their results from marketing today to grow their business.
Mhm.
They depend on their sales team. So, our question for them is, okay, do you have anything to lose by trying? Do you have anything to lose by saving a huge, portion of your marketing budget by moving it to AI, seeing what happens for 3, 6, 9 months? Like the cost benefit is huge. Like you're going to decrease cost, you will increase your benefit, you'll see. And guess what? Even if you don't increase your benefit, you'll be saving money and you're not losing anything that you were getting with your former solution.
Yeah, and the data you're feeding into it, like this to me is like the crazy part is like the data going into it is all publicly available. It's safe. It's low risk as far as like a security
Right.
standpoint. And guess what? There are a shitload of other AI models eating up your publicly available data, and you don't own any of those models. You can't
Right.
do anything. They're used against you
Oh yeah.
oftentimes. Why not begin the process of coalescing all of that publicly available data about your company into something that you own and can use for so many applications? Like it like every quarter from here until the next 10 years, like that you are not making that a practice of, we need to have this into a model that we own and we can use, because everybody else is doing it and you don't own any of it. You have zero control over any of it.
Right. Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, this was a great conversation, Matt. I appreciate it.
It was fun.
So Yeah, yeah. So join us next time. This is the Tenfold AI podcast where we help you 10x your AI investments and avoid shiny object syndrome. I am Heather Gertis. This is Matt Scanlon. We're sponsored by Promode.ai, the first AI powered marketing platform specifically built for B2B companies, saving 73% on average compared to your marketing agency. 30-day money back guarantee. And yeah, we'll see you again soon.
Bye, Heather.
Bye.